It's the Health in the Real World podcast. It's time to start the show with Chris Janke as your host. Here to give you everything that you need when it comes to fitness strategies. We keep it simple and easy. It's your roadmap to get healthy. You don't need equipment and you don't need a gym. Just the right strategies to get you fit and trim.
The Health in the Real World podcast is sponsored by...
I bet you could write your own diet book, right? I mean, the information's already out there and well known. So why then are we all still so overweight? Check out my book, Help My Diet Sucks, and you will have a simple checklist, no diet dogma, and no crazy diets. Check it out on Amazon. Help My Diet Sucks. Hello and welcome to Health in the Real World. I'm Chris Janke, joined today by Tim Wade. And as a master relationship coach, author, and speaker, Tim brings 25 plus years of experience in personal growth and transformation as he teaches men in the counterintuitive secrets that helped him become a strong, compassionate, and successful partner and father. Tim, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Good to see you.
You too. Thanks for joining us today. So I gave a brief introduction, but help fill in some of the gaps, what you do and even how you got started doing this.
Absolutely. Well, I started out as a business coach about 10 years ago. Well, 12 years ago now. And I figured out really quickly that all business coaching is life coaching.
Right.
So it's always the business owner that needs the real coaching, not the mechanics of the business. And that's really where I learned to be a coach. And then what happened was in 2015, I had been married for 23 years. And my wife at the time said, I'm done. I need space. I want out. I want something different. I don't know what I want, but this isn't it.
Right.
It was, I call it the divorce bomb because I felt blindsided by it. I didn't think that was what was going to happen, but we did have a very amicable divorce, very friendly. We're still very friendly as co-parents. But at that point, I went through a very dark night of the soul going through that divorce and didn't have really any support. And that's when I realized that men in particular are an underserved population when it comes to any sort of psychological help or relationship help. Now, part of that is because that's who we are as men. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know if you remember the old Monty Python movie with the Black Knight, we could be standing there and it's like, that's your arm laying on the ground. No, it's not. It's just a flesh wound. It's nothing. Right, really. Right. Yes. How much bleeding do you have to actually Google, 911? So that inspired me, what I went through, to reach out to other men and talk. First, just get them talking about the things they don't like to talk about, like emotions or relationships. Yeah. And that's how Lionhearted Men got started. The next thing you knew, I was being flooded by guys who were in marriage crisis, relationship crisis. And it turned out that was really the gateway or the wound, so to speak, that they entered through. So because of that kind of stubbornness, the pain had to be pretty significant for them to finally go, okay, I'll get help. Right. And it's not, and I'm the same way. It's not, it's just the way we are as guys. Sometimes we're the one man band and we can fix it and we can do it. And
right.
And so,
yeah. And that's how, as men, a lot of times we get our personal value from what we can do, like the problems we can fix, right? We're fixers, right?
Exactly.
And it's tough sometimes to say, I have no clue. I don't know how to fix this toilet. I don't,
yeah. Like I got awesome. I know how to fix the toilet. It's this other thing that I'm just.
It's this relationship that. Yeah. Yes. Interesting. And you just finished up with a retreat, right? A men's retreat.
I did. I have a business partner that we do retreats together. We do 3 to 4 a year. This last one was here in Colorado at a dude ranch. Nice. So we work with horses actually as a metaphor for relationship, because have some similarities. I'm not saying women are horses, okay? But there's a similarity in that how intuitive horses are, how they read your energy, how they read, whether you're confident or not, and things like that. So we work with the men, not just riding, but on the ground with the horse. They go through a ritual almost of the horse joining up and finally going, okay, I trust you. I'll follow you.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I just started watching Yellowstone yesterday with Kevin Costner. Have you did you watch it?
No, I haven't seen it yet. Everyone says you have to.
Oh, you would love it. We just watched the first episode last night. It's phenomenal. There's a horse that they end up breaking. Very interesting tactic to do it. They get the new guy and they duct tape his hand to the saddle and they duct tape his feet, and they just make him ride until the horse basically gives up. But so that's maybe not the best tactic, but
it's interesting you bring that up because that was the way they did it back in the Old West. And there's really a new breed of horse trainers that use a different technique. So we're not talking about, a metaphor of breaking women or anything like that, or saddling them. It's really about how to be strong and gentle at the same time.
Oh, I like that. So how does a man be strong and gentle at the same time, especially since I think this is changing, but our fathers, grandfathers, going all the way back, strength was highly valued, but being gentle was maybe not as valued, right?
And still to this day, it's not as easy, I think, for men to know where to be that without being spineless.
Right. Yeah. So how do you be gentle without being spineless, and how do you be strong without being overbearing? Or right. There's that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And part of it has to do with one of the things I discovered when I was going on my own, journey of becoming single suddenly. So there were 3 questions. It all boiled down to 3 questions that to help a man, probably helped anyone, but for me, it really helped. If I answered these questions at a deep level, I would really know who I was. I would really know what I stood for and what I wanted. So the 3 questions were and are, who am I? What do I want? And where am I going? Now you might think, well, how does that help you be strong and gentle? If you know who you are, you don't have to push too harder than you have to. You don't have to wonder, what am I going to do in this situation? Because I don't know what my values are. And that's really what I mean when I say, who am I? You ask a man who he is, and usually he'll say, I'm a plumber and I live in Chicago, and he gives you his credentials. But the real answer to the question is, what are your values? What are your virtues? What do you stand for no matter what? And you can be much more confident and relaxed when you know those things. And then those things inform, what do you want? Now, again, you ask a man what he wants, and he says, I want, well, here's what I don't want. And then they list all the things they don't want.
Right.
And then, but they kind of hem and haw on that. What do I want? Maybe it's more love, more affection. I don't know, more money.
Yeah.
But the question really is, what kind of experience of life do you want?
Yeah.
And then how can you create that?
So when you talk to men about finding their values and their virtues, do you find that most men are able to articulate that, or are they still having an issue with trying to figure that out?
At first, they're, scratching their heads. That's why with help, they are able to see that they have a lot of values. They just didn't ever write them down or get them clear. We also, in the coaching that I do at the retreats and one-on-one, we talk about non-negotiables, that there are certain bottom line things that are just, you're not going to cross that boundary.
Right.
And these are rules for you, not for other people.
Okay.
It's how you expect yourself to show up in the world. And believe it or not, when men really sit down and think about it, kindness, generosity, love, those are way at the top of the list.
Yeah.
It's not power and prestige. I've never seen that once on the list.
Right.
it's family and love and kindness and connection and confidence. Yeah, confidence for sure. So how are you strong and gentle? It's because you know that you have a value of that you can be gentle, and it doesn't mean you're spineless.
Right.
And there are times when you need to be solid.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a parenting philosophy that my mom was a preschool teacher for 35 years, and she really introduced me to this parenting philosophy about being fair and firm. So I think in just very gross overgeneralization, in the past, it was I think most parents erred on the side of firmness, but being too stern and maybe too, cracking the whip, and not having that kindness and that softness. And now I feel like our culture's gone all the way to the other side, and you see the helicopter parents who don't want their kids to even fall on the playground, and it's like everything is so soft, and it's like over loving, right? But they're not.
Everyone gets a trophy.
Everyone gets a trophy, but they're not. There's not a line in the sand that like, no, this is what I expect of you as your behavior. But being fair and firm, it's a very hard line, and it depends on the kid. Yeah, I have 4 kids, and they're all so different. So it's about following what you expect of them and what you expect of yourself, like you're saying, but doing it in a kind way that's not overbearing and, you're being a jerk about it, right?
Right. No, that's so absolutely true. And I found more and more that there is a middle path, as they call it in Buddhism, for everything. And that really it's about, with the horses, for example, we learned something called pressure and release, and that horses respond to pressure. They're very, very, very sensitive to it. And so it just only takes a little bit of energy to get them to like move over or turn or whatever. And you learn quickly how often in situations other than horses, we're pushing too hard with kids, for example. You don't have to keep telling them, because what happens is they start ignoring you, and then you keep telling them, and then they ignore you. And so it has applied to a lot of areas in life. And I have 2 teenagers, and it has been an amazing journey to learn how to be fair and firm, like you said. And in the long run, they like knowing where the boundary is.
Yeah.
When I say like, they may roll their eyes and complain about it.
Right.
But a kid with no boundaries gets very scared and angry, actually.
Yeah. And that's the reason why as teenagers, we do kind of act out, right? Is that we're looking for the line. Like, what can I definitely not cross? And yeah, a kid with no boundaries whatsoever is very lost and does not feel safe, because there's no parameters guiding my behavior and no expectations. But then on the other hand, if you have too many parameters and you're running like a Nazi detention camp in your house, it's like, that's way, you know what I mean? Like that's like,
just asking them to rebel at that point.
Right.
Please sneak out in the middle of the night.
Exactly.
But I always think of myself as guardrails, kind of. And as they get older, the guardrails, get wider.
Right.
But I make sure they don't fall off either side of the road, the cliff. But in the road, they get choice, and the older they get, age appropriate, they get to make choices. And I think the hardest thing is to let your children struggle. And safe struggle is actually mandatory in growing up. Now it's got to be safe, right? Age appropriately safe. But you said helicopter parents, it's not just the helicoptering, it's the search and rescue part too, right? Yeah. Swooping in and doing it for them, or like you said, make sure they never fall down, make sure they never make a mistake. It's very hard to differentiate then. And then you're 35 years old living in your parents' basement.
Right, because you don't have the skills. Self-esteem comes from 2 different things. And I think we are hitting it, and I say we as like general culture, like one for self-esteem is just feeling good about yourself. Like somebody loves me, my mom and dad say nice things about me, things like that. And the other half of it though is aptitude. Is, if I don't know how to work Zoom, and I'm on a call with you, and I don't feel confident in my abilities, right? So that's the other half of self-esteem. But you're right. If let's say I'm watching little Johnny play on the playground and little Johnny falls, and I run over and I pick him up for him, that's not teaching little Johnny anything, right? So
Right.
I think you and I, it sounds like we agree. So anybody listening who is not quite sure about this, it'd be like, again, age appropriate. Let's say you have a 5-year-old, you know, letting them fail in a safe way is like letting them play on the 5-year-old playground and falling, scraping their knee, doing all that, yet not allowing them to run to the street, right? It's like,
Yeah.
that's not what, we don't want to go that far. But yeah, letting them fall, letting them get hurt, letting them have that disappointment, and then flexing their disappointment muscles and learning that, hey, I can bounce back from this. I'm resilient, right?
Absolutely. In fact, I think distress tolerance is something that a lot of kids aren't learning these days. They go directly to some escape, whether it's their phone or TV, video game, whatever it is, instead of being able to sit with something like an uncomfortable emotion, perhaps,
Right.
and realize, oh, well, that passes, that changes, and I don't have to immediately, and then of course, if it gets worse and worse, then it becomes drug addiction and alcohol and all that as a way of not being able to tolerate either frustration or distress or a challenging emotion.
Yeah, and it's interesting you said that, because that's what I was going to say as you were talking, is that that's the foundation for addiction, is the inability to just sit with your emotions. And so you're reaching for drugs, alcohol, sex, food to numb a feeling.
Yeah, right.
And that resiliency is really what we want to help create. It's like doing a workout. Like you have to start slow and then systematically progress, right?
And also, I believe that there are a lot of men, and I work with men. I am a man, it turns out, and so I am pro. First of all, I'm pro marriage. I'm pro relationships. I'm pro women. and men.
Yeah.
So I'm not coming down on them, but I know that we were taught, a lot of us, that anger was the appropriate emotion almost for everything.
Yeah.
I used to joke. I thought I would say I have two emotions. Both of them are anger, and
right, exactly.
And anger can be a way of not dealing with something more uncomfortable, like sorrow or hurt or sadness, things like that's underneath the anger, and the anger being a secondary emotion that covers a lot of times as a defense. And one of the things that my clients learn is how to be with their emotions without going to the knee-jerk reaction, and how to respond appropriately, no matter what they're feeling. Yeah. Which goes back to, well, how do you decide how to respond? Well, you go back to your values. If I value nonviolence, or I value kindness, then that becomes my touchstone, even if I'm feeling something else.
Sure. Right.
I mean, Viktor Frankl, who wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. You may be you're familiar with it. You have a smile. Yeah. And he's been credited with this quote, and I'm not sure if that's true, but it doesn't matter because it's a great quote. And he said, between stimulus and response, there is a pause or a space. And in that space, you have the freedom to make a different choice, not just the reaction. And so being able to step into that gap in between the stimulus, which might be anything, a teenager saying, I hate you, you're the worst parent in the world, or having a disappointing thing in business, or having your wife tell you, I need space, I love you, but I'm not in love with you anymore. All of those are like things you might react to.
Right.
But if you stop, and I always say breathing's good, turns out.
Yep.
In fact, specifically breathing through your nose, it turns out, calms your amygdala and your nervous system. Then you can make a different choice, because you're starting to come back to regulation. And then you think, well, how do I want to deal with this? How do I want to respond? And I don't know about you, but when I was younger, I had no idea about this. I was a reaction machine.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of adults still are, but that's something that I try to teach my kids, like even around language. Like they say, "You made me mad." I am very clear to say, let's break this down. Actually, I didn't make you mad because you're giving me all your power. I did something. You witnessed it. You had a bunch of emotions in your head, thoughts, everything, and you got mad. So you can break that down. Like, I don't have to change for you to not be mad anymore if that's what you decide, right? Or use your anger in a way that, forces you to ask the tough questions. Well, why am I mad? What is it about my dad's behavior that sent me into anger, right? And I think having those tools, a lot of adults, like I said, don't have this, so they're not teaching their kids this, obviously. But what would you tell an adult who is finally realizing that, hey, like you said, I'm 35 years old. I've been sheltered from experiencing my emotions. My parents maybe bubble wrapped me and didn't allow me to feel pain. And I go, right to anger. Like, how do we like unwrap that a little bit? What's the first thing we want to tell those guys?
I think the first thing I would say in unpacking that is the idea that you are not your emotions and you are not your thoughts. And that's kind of like, what do you mean? And I look at it like this. If you stop, you're having an emotion or having a thought, and you say to yourself, I'm having the thought that my teenager is a monster.
Right.
Instead of saying, just having that thought, my teenager is a monster. And in psychology, they call this diffusion, which is basically you're unfusing your identity or yourself with your thoughts. Because if you can watch yourself think, you can say, I'm having a thought that, well, who's doing the watching?
Right.
That's the observer. That's the observer mind, the part of you that can watch yourself think or observe your emotions. And it's the same thing, kind of what you're saying to your child. Not just the making, who made who what, do what, but also just, I'm having the emotion of anger. I'm having some anger. I'm feeling some anger, not I am angry.
Right.
Now you're identifying.
Right.
And when you do that, it sounds like a word game. I mean, it sounds like, well, come on, is that going to really do anything? But it's the first step towards being able to have self-mastery and being able to deal with your emotions. And then the second step, because emotions, I believe, always come with urges, that like their emotion, they urge you to do something, is that if you can just sit with it, with the emotion, and don't do anything with it, you don't have to act it out. You don't have to stuff it down. You just acknowledge it. Oh, wow, I'm feeling angry.
Yeah.
Jill Bolte Taylor, who did a great TED talk on how she called my stroke of my stroke of brilliance, I think. Mm-hmm. And basically, she talked about, she's a neuroscientist, and she said the chemical cocktail that causes emotions, emotions are triggered, and it's these hormones and things that go off in your head. That chain reaction, lasts about 90 seconds. That's it. Now, you might say, well, wait a minute, I've been angry for longer than 90 seconds before, or I've been sad or whatever. It's like, yes, but that's because you re-up the little reaction with another thought.
Right.
Because thoughts and emotions, have a relationship to each other. And if you're having an emotion, a very strong emotion, the first thing is think, well, what am I thinking? What story am I telling myself? What interpretation and all of that? But if you sit with the emotion, it will shift on its own a lot of times.
Wow.
And I was blown away when I heard that.
And so that's becoming the watcher. So like, after you pull yourself out of identifying, I am angry, and pull yourself out and say, my body's experiencing anger. It's not feeling good. It's uncomfortable feeling, and sort of watch it. That life is only about 90 seconds.
Yeah, that's about it. and during that time, if you can just breathe and be okay with it, like way back, in the early days of psychology, they had, they would say to you, good emotions and bad emotions and things like that. And the current thought is that there are difficult emotions. They make you uncomfortable, and there are ones that make you feel good, but all emotions are normal.
Yes.
It's really what you do with them that can be useful or harmful. So, you have three choices. You can act them out. We all know what that looks like. With anger, you can punch someone or, hit the dog. You can stuff them down, which is the thing that women were taught a lot, to not feel their emotions, especially anger. So you stuff it down. No, it's bad. I push it away. I put it in the cellar.
And so when you stuff it down, it also lasts longer than 90 seconds. I mean, it can last 9 decades, right?
Yeah. At that point, it doesn't go away. It just festers in the sewer. And then the third thing, the middle option is just be with it. Don't judge it. Don't say, I'm so wrong for feeling this anger. I love that you said, I'm feeling this in my body. Because that's actually where emotions live,
right,
in your nervous system, which is not in your head, actually. It's in your body.
Yeah.
And so if you can tell, oh, I'm starting to get angry because I know the body sensation that I feel, then you can get out ahead of that reaction that you might have and slow it down and go, oh, hold on, folks. Maybe I should take a deep breath and not react immediately. See what is a better choice.
Yeah. And at that point, you're really breaking it down, and you're really breaking it into its parts. Like, my body is feeling this way. And you're really disassociating with that identification.
Yeah.
Which is a great way. I mean, it just slows all that momentum. It just, like you said, 90 seconds. Whew, that was uncomfortable. Move on with my day. Right.
Right. Or deal with whatever the crisis is or whatever's going on. Right. It's almost like a runaway train. And for most people, the motion train starts and just takes off, and you end up going over the cliff, like in Back to the Future. And
I love that movie.
Yes. And you're laying at the bottom of the gulch going, what happened?
Exactly.
And the trick is, or the practice is, to get that to go into like bullet time, to slow down, because there's a siding, there's a switch,
right.
And you can get the train to take that siding and slow down. But at first you might see it go by. Like, well, that was the siding right there. Right. And I'm still at the bottom of the gulch. And eventually you go, here it comes. Why? Because, to bring it back to the body, oh, I'm feeling that tightness in my neck. I'm feeling my shoulders. I'm getting, blood pumping in my head that feels like fire.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. And you go, I'm getting triggered.
Right.
Okay. I have a choice now. And I could actually slow this train down, stop it. And then you can apply all sorts of skills, relationship skills, like listening, and things like that, and not be reactionary, which a lot of relationships suffer because both people are just reacting to each other.
Yeah. They're interpreting their feelings as truth. Mm-hmm. And this is the truth, and you're the one that caused the feeling, and boom, I'm gonna lash back at you, and then it's that whole one-upsmanship, and then you got a long-term fight on your hands.
Absolutely. So,
well, Tim, this has been great. Again, this is Tim Wade from Lionhearted Men Coaching. Tim, how do people get in touch with you if they want to work with you, if they want to check out your retreats?
Absolutely. You can go to www.lionhearted.men. So there's no com in there. It's actually the .men extension, which is pretty cool, I think.
There's a .men? That's awesome.
There is a .men. And so, yes, lionhearted.men. If you're really in like dire straits with for example, an impending divorce or separation, I also have an online course called How to Defuse the Divorce Bomb. That's how to defuse the divorcebomb.com. So if you're in a hurry, so to speak, a lot of guys have their hair on fire.
Right.
You can also go there and check that out.
Very awesome. This has been great information. Tim, thank you so much for joining us today. Again, this is Health in the Real World. I'm Chris Janke, joined today by Tim Wade. Tim, thanks again for joining.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks for listening to the Health in the Real World show. Make sure to like and subscribe and comment down below. Visit mycorebalance.com to learn more.